Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk to you about the utilitarian idea, a little bit about Peter Singer's idea, and how that all correlation correlates to our moral obligation to help others, and specifically the homelessness issue within Hawaii. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about just an overview before we get into more specific ideas. Um, the goal is just to explore the correlation between utilitarianism and homelessness. I'm going to be explaining the ideas of utilitarianism and more specifically, like I said, Peter Singer's ideas and how his view on moral obligation of humanity in terms of things like charity, giving, and offering assistance to those in need all kind of correlate and come back to the needs here in Hawaii. So first, just a little bit of an overview on utilitarianism. From our readings in class, I got this quote from Peter Singer, and it says maximization of the sum of individual utilities is subject to non-violation of rights, equality, and justice. And overall, the goal of utilitarianism is to make life better by increasing the good things and decreasing the bad, which would be bringing more pleasure and happiness into life and minimizing pain and unhappiness. In one of our readings for this unit, we kind of examined the example of Bengal, where there was many people starving, um, lack of nutrition, lack of food, and that was just in a time of crisis. But the reading also exhibits the idea that even in a normal time, not a time of crisis, there's still so many people on the streets dealing with food shortages, hunger, um, no place to go, no place to live. And so it just brings up those ideas that there are constantly people in the world dying from malnutrition and lack of food, while there's others who spend money in excess. On clothing, exotic cars, um, fancy food places, things like that, without thinking twice about, giving back to those who are impoverished, and kind of just examines the idea that both individuals in this world and governments definitely are aware. They clearly know that this is happening in the world today, and it's just a matter of, getting people to take that initiative and do something and to give money to those in need, to those charities who are helping those in need rather than spending it on some clothes when you already have perfectly good clothes at home and things like that. This is something that goes on all the time in our own community and all over the world. And then they talk a little bit about finite sensibility and just the idea of assumptions is how I interpret it. It cannot be assured that that if someone prefers X to Y and Y to Z, that the person also prefers X to Z. So just the idea that you shouldn't assume things about people, and rather, focus on your own being and your own wealth, and kind of making things equal for all people. The minimum sensible amount of something is equitable. So kind of just, you don't need extra of something. Just the minimum sensible amount should be enough. And then they talk more about the weak majority preference, and they also relate it to the Pareto criterion. I'm probably saying that wrong, but they kind of correlate the two. They have similar ideas, but they're a little different. So I just have a quote here from the Singer article that talks about weak majority preference and explains it a little bit. So according to weak majority preference, as long as 50% of the population are made noticeably better off and the other 50% unnoticeably worse off, the society should be regarded as being better off. Conversely, as long as 50% are made noticeably worse off and the other 50% unnoticeably better off, the society is worse off. Thus, taking the limit, social welfare stays unchanged as 50% of the population are made just unnoticeably better off and the other 50% just unnoticeably worse off. So basically just saying that based on a scale of 50%, either way, better or worse off, we're able to judge the society if it is good or bad. And then the ideas from Pareto, a decision cannot harm the other party. So kind of in the same idea as weak majority preference, you wouldn't want the other 50%, if you're doing something that makes 50% of people better off, you wouldn't want those other 50% of people on the other half to be worse off. You'd want them to be unchanged or unaffected, or obviously better off as well. And additionally, it does not override anyone's individual preference. So kind of the same thing, you wouldn't want someone on the other side who voted against the issue, to be overridden. And then you need at least one person for the Pareto idea rather than 50%. And you can't take things away from people that they already have. So now we'll talk a little bit about moral obligation. Some main bullets on this are preventing bad from happening to other people is each of our own moral obligations as a human. Proximity and distance does not matter when it comes to bettering the lives of others. So whether it be, for example, buying a pair of Tom's shoes, I know Tom's is 1 for 1. So when I buy a pair of the slip-on Tom's shoes for $50 or however much they cost now, they're also sending the same pair of shoes to someone in need overseas. So that's really cool. And that's like someone who I'll never meet, never see in person probably, but I'm able to help them through sending away. So basically, this idea of moral obligation is saying that whether it's that person who you'll never encounter, never meet, or a homeless man that walks past your home every day and you say hi to every morning, or someone in your own family, the proximity or distance from that person shouldn't matter when it comes to wanting to better the lives of other people. We should just want to do it regardless because it's our moral responsibility. And there's also no class distinction when it comes to bringing aid to others. And not everyone's going to give, even though through this lens or this viewpoint, it is the moral obligation. Not everyone's going to give. So if you have more to give than what you think is the right amount, give that because it can balance out for the people who don't and cause a greater help to society. So then here are some statistics on Hawaii specifically. Homelessness is clearly a big issue in Hawaii. And so this example just kind of showcases there is about 6,500, Hawaiians experiencing homelessness in 2018, which was fortunately down 6% from 2014. So hopefully, all the different organizations and things that are trying to bring aid to that situation have been making a good impact. And then there's obviously some other stats on here just about the types of people, so individual adults, people with families, veterans, people who are chronically homeless, or individual members of the youth population. So there's a whole bunch of stats on that on this graph, and then we also have this other graph who specifically shows us, let's see if we can zoom in, the number of people out of the total that are sheltered, unsheltered people and families, individuals, chronically homeless, veterans, and then, unaccompanied children and youth. And so this is a little bit of an easier to read um, example to see, okay, well, there's a spike in people who are sheltered here from 2010 or maybe 29 around there to 2014. So it kind of gives you a example, see like where people are getting help, things like that. So I thought that was just interesting to note. And then here are some initiatives. So Waikiki Health's Next Step Shelter, which is something I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Chaminade's campus ministry actually works with them to provide hot meals. I believe it's once a week. They take students there to help out with that. And then there's the Hawaii Home, HOME, project, where it's a free medical clinic for impoverished people to receive care. There's also PACT, Parents and Children Together, which help victims that have dealt with domestic violence. And then Project Hawaii Inc., which helps children break the cycle of poverty. And according to this Project Hawaii site, Hawaii has the largest population of unsheltered children per capita in the whole United States, which is just interesting to note. Yeah, and so just a little bit more about what Chaminade does with the Next Step Shelter. I actually participated in that for several weeks during my time at Chaminade, and it was an amazing experience. The Next Step Shelter is really cool. I've never seen anything like it. It's almost a warehouse kind of building, and they use plywood boards to make little cubicles for people, and they could put air mattresses. Even some of them had like pool blow ups and things like that that they could sleep on. And then they had tables for a little dining area. And I know they had a laundry area, and then also lots of outdoor space where you could go outside, talk to friends, things like that. It seemed like a great community of people, and there was honestly a lot of people staying there. And so we brought a hot meal to them once a week. I did it for several weeks, like I mentioned, and they were always so grateful. They said they love when Chaminade comes because we always bring a great meal. And each night of the week, they had a different organization come in and bring them food. So I thought that's a really easy way to get involved and, obviously give back. It's not a financial give back, but you are making such an impact and being able to talk with these people and give them a companion, and just someone to tell their stories to. Not everyone gets that. So that was really cool and something you can definitely do through Chaminade. And then just another thing that I feel like is a huge point of interest in Hawaii, and I've learned so much about through my time here, is the concept of aloha. Aloha means that we are able to recognize and appreciate the uniqueness and differences that we each bring to the world. Aloha is not only a word, it is a way of living and an attitude, and expresses guidelines to help our lives through kindness, patience, compassion, respect, togetherness, affection, empathy, peace, and love. By living with aloha in your mind and on your spirit, you are able to help and support one another, make the journey of life better and sweeter. And I love how everyone in Hawaii, it seems like, especially at Chaminade, just holds this idea in their heart and supports the idea of living aloha. It was something so welcoming and exciting, to get to know more about and to bring back with me to mainland. So that was really cool. And I feel like by participating in these initiatives to help others, we can live aloha. And then finally, in conclusion, I found that by the principles of utilitarianism, they enforce that the idea that each person has a moral duty to support others in any way that they can. I see this to be true through Peter Singer's ideas, the weak majority preference, and the fact that both class distinction as well as distance does not matter according to Singer's own belief. And this is just overall an idea that brings me to think that we should all help others, especially in Hawaii, through these great initiatives.